Good morning. We are going to take what we learned yesterday about adjectives that compare, looking at comparative and superlative adjectives, and we are going to use them in sentences today. So to review, a comparative adjective is used for comparing two people or things. A superlative adjective is used for comparing three or more people or things. Most comparative adjectives are formed by adding er at the end of the adjective. We also learned that with some words, you may have to add more at the beginning instead of er. Most superlative adjectives are formed by adding est to the end of the adjective, or you may have to form or add most at the beginning of the adjective. Okay, so we have er and more, est and most. Okay. For example, if the adjective is small and we're comparing two things, the comparative adjective would be smaller. And if we're comparing more than two things, so that would be three or more, the superlative adjective form is smallest. So we're going to write the adjective that correctly completes the sentence. Okay? So we have them listed over here on the right, and we have a sentence. My suggestion to you, when you have things like this, you want to try each word out in the sentence to figure out which one makes the most sense, which one sounds correct. But also, you want to look in your sentence and you want to ask yourself, am I comparing two things, or am I comparing three or more things? And that right there should tell you whether you're using er or est. Okay? So you'll notice on our list we have the original adjective, we have the comparative adjective, and we have the superlative adjective. We have to decide which one we're using. Oscar is a very blank dog. Now, are we comparing Oscar to anyone else in this sentence? No, we're not. We're just describing Oscar. So that means we're just going to use the regular adjective, friendly. Oscar is a very friendly dog. Number 2, it is blank today than it is yesterday. Than is a huge clue word to tell you you are comparing something. So let's look, what are we comparing? It is blank today than it was yesterday. We are comparing today to yesterday. So these two things are being compared. That's two things that are being compared. So I know that I need a comparative adjective, because a comparative adjective is when you're comparing two things. And I also know that a comparative adjective ends in er most of the time. So I am going to start with the comparative adjective colder. Let's try it. It is colder today than it was yesterday. Perfect. Number 3. The librarian asked us to be blank. Is there anything being compared in this sentence? No. The librarian asked us to be blank. If it said the librarian asked us to be blank than mice, then we are being compared to mice. But it does not say that. It just says the librarian asked us to be, so I'm going to look at the original adjective, which is quiet. The librarian asked us to be quiet. Anytime nothing is being compared, you're going to use your original adjective. Number 4. Mom's lasagna is the blank I've ever had. Is anything being compared? You might say no, but you are incorrect. Now, there isn't the word than, because we're not comparing two things. Look at the sentence again. Mom's lasagna is the blank I've ever had. So we are comparing Mom's lasagna to every lasagna he's ever had. So that's going to be 3 or more things. Comparing Mom's lasagna to every lasagna he's ever had, then we are looking for a superlative adjective because we are comparing 3 or more things. So let's go over to the superlative and let's try it out. The superlative form of tasty is tastiest. Mom's lasagna is the tastiest I've ever had. The swimming pool is much blank at the other end. Okay, are we comparing anything in this sentence? It's not word for word here for you, so read it again. The swimming pool is much blank at the other end. What we are doing is we are comparing the other end to the end we're in now. It doesn't state the end we're in now. The swimming pool is much blank at the other end. I know I'm comparing the 2 ends of the swimming pool, but I have to infer that from the information they're giving me. Okay, it's not always going to be word for word. And if you're really uncertain, you can try each of the words. So if I tried the regular adjective, the swimming pool is much deep at the other end. Does that make sense? No. I believe I'm comparing 2 things, the 2 ends of the pool. So let's try a comparative adjective. The swimming pool is much deeper at the other end. That does make sense. But just to show you, let's also try the superlative. The swimming pool is much deepest at the other end. That does not make sense. Grandpa was blank because his favorite team lost. Are we comparing anything there? No. Now, we would use the regular adjective form, and let's test it out. Grandpa was angry because his favorite team lost. Now, if the sentence said, Grandpa was blank than a bull because his favorite team lost, then we're comparing Grandpa to a bull, and then we would have angrier. But we're not comparing how Grandpa feels to anything else. So we don't need a comparative or a superlative adjective. We just need our regular adjective. This has been the blank day all year. All right, what are we comparing in that sentence? This day to all the days this year. This has been the blank day all year. So if I'm comparing this day to all the days this year, that means that I'm comparing 3 or more things, which would make this a superlative adjective. So if I go over to the superlative adjective, I have busiest. Let's try it out. This has been the busiest day all year. Yes. Brandon is the blank boy in our class. What are we comparing? We're comparing Brandon to all the boys in his class. So if I'm comparing Brandon to all the boys in his class, that means I am comparing 3 or more things. So I need to look at the superlative adjective and try it out. So right over here, tallest. Let's try it. Brandon is the tallest boy in our class. That works. Now, if it compared Brandon to one other student, then we're comparing 2 things and we would look at the comparative. All right, I am blank than Uncle Joe. Well, I see a hint. There's than. What are we comparing in this sentence? I to Uncle Joe. So we are comparing 2 things, I and Uncle Joe. When you're comparing 2 things, that's a comparative adjective, so we're going to look at the ER form, the comparative form. Shorter. Let's try it. I am shorter than Uncle Joe. Perfect. The construction workers are working very blank. Are we comparing anything in that sentence? No. The construction workers are working very fast. Just the regular adjective fast is describing how they're working. Okay, now some comparative and superlative adjectives are irregular. We talked about this yesterday. For example, if you have the adjective bad, the comparative form is worse and the superlative form is worst. So we're going to read these sentences. We need to decide, are we comparing anything? And if we are we comparing two things? Or are we comparing three or more? We have our list of the original adjectives, the comparative adjective, and the superlative adjective. Here we go. Ted wanted blank vegetables on his plate. What do you think? Ted wanted many vegetables on his plate. Ted wanted more vegetables on his plate. Ted wanted most vegetables. Are we comparing anything? No, we're not. There's nothing that's being compared. Ted wanted many vegetables on his plate. Look at number 12. That movie was the blank I've seen in a long time. So we are comparing that movie to all the movies he's seen. So that movie was the blank I've seen all time. We have bad, worse, or worst. If I'm comparing one movie to the movies, all the movies he's seen, then that means I'm comparing three or more things, which means it is going to be a superlative adjective, which would be all the way over here, worse. Let's try it. That movie was the worst I've seen in a long time. I wish Grandma didn't live so far. Oop, and I told you the answer. I wish Grandma didn't live so far away. The reason it's far is because I'm not comparing where Grandma lives to anything else. Like, I'm not comparing anything. And to give you an idea, it would have been far, farther, or farthest. Sorry, I gave you the answer on that one. Whoops. Number 14. I had the blank amount of ice cream. Okay, what are we comparing here? I think she is comparing her ice cream to everyone else's ice cream. All right, so we have little, less, least. So listen to them all. I had the little amount of ice cream. I had the less amount of ice cream. Or I had the least amount of ice cream. She had the least, so she means out of the whole group, she had the least amount of ice cream. Gina is a blank runner than me. So we are comparing Gina to me. That means we're comparing two things. So I want a comparative adjective. So I'm going to look in the comparative. The comparative form of few is fewer. Oh, sorry, wrong line. Better. The comparative form of good is better, because we don't say gooder. So let's try better. Gina is a better runner than me. There are only a blank cookies left in the jar. Are we comparing anything in this sentence? No. So let's look at the original adjective. It's few. Then we have fewer and fewest. There are only a few cookies left in the jar. We aren't comparing anything. I had the blank dream last night. Okay. I had the. Okay, so we're comparing last night's dream to all of our dreams. Okay. So that sounds like that would be more, three or more would be superlative. So let's go look at our choices. We have bad, worse, and worst. I had the bad dream last night. I had the worst dream last night. I had the worst dream last night. I wanted blank peas, but we ran out. Okay, so he's comparing what he did have to what he wants to have, right? So that would be two things. So let's look at the comparative adjective. We have many, more, and most. I wanted more peas, but we ran out. She is feeling much blank than she was yesterday. Oop, there's that clue word than. What are we comparing? Well, we're comparing how she's feeling today to how she was feeling yesterday. So that's two things. So let's look at our comparative adjective. Better. She is feeling much better than she was yesterday. My house is the blank one from school. Okay, so we are comparing my house to all the other houses. So that means that's three or more, which would be superlative. So let's go over to the superlative adjective, which is farthest. My house is the farthest one from school.